Yes, indeed, and he's drowning with data. He's come in with a laptop that's about 8 inches thick. There's that much information on it, Gerard, and he's been in form as well.
And he was very keen to tell me last Friday night after he got up another big blockbuster, the Pies, or was it Thursday night?
Yes.
That without data, you're just another flog with an opinion. He was very strong with that.
Hoyne, welcome.
Sammy, great to have you back. Missed you for the last 2 weeks.
What did I miss? How did our Guess Who go last week? Did it survive?
No, it did. Can I just?
Hang on.
I've never
so
been.
you are in all sorts.
No.
You're
so
on the
boys,
ropes.
The boys have absolutely hammered me back office that your Guess Who is in disarray in 2025.
I reckon it's shambles.
I can absolutely assure you tonight there is zero chance.
Okay.
That
Deja vu here.
either of you or any of our listeners, if any of our listeners get this, I'll be very happy. But there is no chance.
I've heard this before.
Neither of you two are getting it. And if you do, I don't know what
are you batting at? You're about 0-5, aren't you? 0-6.
I reckon last year I was batting at about a 95% percent success rate that Kane and G didn't get it right.
One win after telling Paul Pies.
Two. You didn't stick to your guns. You didn't stick to your guns
That's
a couple of weeks ago.
And we got permission too by Dwayne Russell, who's the T-shirt man here at this station, to have the production of Without Data T-shirts.
Yes. Well, you're down there with West Coast for mine, who are the only winless side in the comedy. You need to get on the board today, Hoyney. You've talked a big game. Let's see if you can back it up. What about your overall observations out of the other side of round at 6?
Yeah, so at this stage at every season, we walk into the Champion Data offices and we have the balloons and the party hats going because we're at round 6,
Whistles.
which means we have the sample size, which means we have real data that we can go off now, as opposed to just putting things on watch and just being a little bit hesitant.
Okay.
Just because you've only had the 3 or 4 weeks. Now we've got the 6-week period, which we always refer to on this show. So 6 weeks in, thought it is best to start from a player perspective with the risers and fallers of 2025.
You want to be positive off the top or negative?
We're going positive. We're up and about. We had a great game yesterday. We're around 6. The sample size is here, so we're happy today. So we'll start with the top 10 risers of 2025 this year. So Paul Curtis comes out number 1. He's risen 215 places on our rating system this year to be the 15th highest rated player in the comp after round 6.
Massive performance in a side that's not winning.
Yeah. Shout out to a couple of Richmond players here. And we've got Richmond on the agenda for the first time this year, tonight as well. But Seth Campbell has risen 210 places this year into the top 35 players.
Good performance, Seth.
In the competition. We've mentioned Steele Sidebottom a bit on this show. Currently the 42nd highest rated player in the competition. He's risen 179 places this year to actually have his best season so far since 2016.
Wow, he's wound the clock right back.
Mark Blitzarves has risen 175 places this year, and then you see him yesterday. Then see him yesterday at the ground watching. Where is this? Oh, he's playing on the wing today.
Yeah.
Been playing fullback all year. Round 6, you see him on the wing. What an asset to have. Another Richmond player, Tom Brown, going really well. Risen 173 places this year. Matt Kennedy, I want to talk about him a little bit later on in the Dogs conversation. I heard you and Kane and Sammy talking about him, so I want to bring him up later. He's risen 155 places.
Into?
He's in the top 20.
Top 20,
top 20 players in the competition so far. Want to give this guy a bit of recognition. Connor Rozee. So I put him on the agenda last year and early on this year. Has he actually been as impactful as what the industry believes that he has been? But so far this year, he's risen 148 places. So right now, he's having his best year that we have seen on our rating system. So hats off to Ken, hats off to Connor Rozee for what he's been able to do there. This is an interesting one. Jack Darling, risen 144 places, still outside the top 100 players in the competition. So he's not shooting the lights out, but he's doing better than what he was doing and performing at West Coast the year before. And to round it out, Bailey Humphries risen 143 places this year, and Lloyd Meek has risen 138 places.
Very good.
Year.
Let's get down to business.
Now we go to the negative.
Now we
go to the negative. So here we go. So the feedback's going to be everything here, I would have thought. So Sam Flanders has dropped 271 places this year.
Wow, he's out of that midfield rotation.
He has. So last year under Hardwick, he was used across halfback, mid. Last couple of games of the year, he was used across half forward. 2025 so far has been predominantly used across the half-forward line. So not
he made
getting
a critical mistake last year in playing well across the half-forward line.
Yes, he did. He did. So he was flying last year.
So graveyard shift for him, really.
Yeah, so it's a bit, now this guy, this really hurts me, it does, but Harry Sheasel has dropped 242 places this year. And you want to know why Harry has dropped from the 11th best player in the comp last year, still can't believe that he wasn't All-Australian last year, to 253rd in the comp, all down to how he's using the footy.
Yep.
The impact with ball in hand this year is 324th.
Can we get him back to the back flank, Hoyney?
I think he needs to. Yeah, I think he needs to
Callum
get a bit
Daniel
of,
can move.
just get a bit of confidence back into his game and get a bit of creativity with ball in hand. That's his asset. He's still having the same impact with how he's winning it.
Yes.
It's just all about his ball use. At the moment, Andy McGrath has dropped 217 places this year. He's actually having his worst season.
Winning it or using it?
A bit of everything.
Yep.
Bit of everything there with Andy. Aaron Norton has dropped 214 places. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes over the next 3 months now. He looked good on Sunday, I thought.
He did. Signs of life there.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Jarman Impey has dropped 211 places.
Winning it or using it?
Jarman, a bit of everything in that. Tyson Stengel, this is all down to how he's actually using it, has dropped 210 places. So that's probably, I would have thought, a bit of a positive if you're a Geelong supporter.
Yeah, there's an upside there.
Offensively, they're going well, and this bloke who's almost a two-time All-Australian hasn't really fired a shot yet. This one's really interesting for me. Merrill Marshall dropped 206 places.
Looks injured.
And I don't know, some of you might know a bit more detail about this, whether or not he had a shortened pre-season or a limited pre-season. Gerard, you might be able to speak a little bit about just what that actually does to you. Not having a pre-season, if that was actually right. So he was a top 100 player last year. Has been for a couple of years. And
pelvis from memory.
Yeah, and now he just sits. He's 299th in the comp this year. I don't think Carlton supporters would be too surprised about this. Blake Acres has dropped 205 places, all down to how he's using the footy.
Yeah. Disappointing. He had the wrong boots on the weekend.
He's cooked the pill, though.
Yeah.
I thought he was better. Well, the eye had him better at the weekend, but geez,
he was better on the weekend.
Shocking kicking games.
Yeah, he was. But
nearly missed the ball on the left.
Didn't he?
That was amazing.
Now, this one's really interesting as well. Lachie Neale dropped 202 places this year. 41st in the comp last year.
Yeah.
243rd in the comp this year. How he's using the footy? 255th in the competition.
Is he going for more by foot and missing targets?
Have to do a bit of a deeper dive on that to give you the absolute answers. Absolute answers on that, and probably a Gold Coaster all over this. Where Sam Closey has dropped 198 spots. Ironically, was dropped on the weekend.
Yeah.
So,
what about Mac Andrew?
So, Mac Andrew isn't there. Just a couple of other players to put on the agenda who are going pretty poorly. Tim Kelly, second lowest rated player in the competition.
He got dropped last week.
This year. Josh Battle's an interesting one if you're a Hawk supporter. So, I think the absolute negating role that he's doing, what he's offering you offensively, not there. 63rd best player in the comp last year, outside the top 200 players this year. And Will Powell having a bit of a changing role this year with John Noble coming in, Daniel Rioli coming in. Less offensive sort of returns in his game compared to what we have seen previously.
Kane just texted me from the Agenda Setter studio down the hall. He wants to know how Tim Taranto. Where's Tim Taranto at? Yeah, he's going well, isn't he?
Tim Taranto had a good game on the weekend. Where is he? But Kane, I don't know if I actually want to say this.
He's validated, is he?
He's 234th in the competition. So
he was good at the weekend.
Yeah. So that's I think we'll keep an eye on that probably every 6 to 8 weeks to see who's actually informed compared to previous seasons or within seasons.
Can you tell me who the best and worst kick in the competition is?
I will be able to tell you that in a couple of weeks' time. Okay. We're working on updating how we do that for 2025 data. Right. So I'll give me a little bit of time on that, G, and I'll promise you will have that in your hands shortly.
Daniel Hoyne's here from Champion Data, of course. It's full-on footy analysis out of the other side of round 6. So you've got the punishment game writ large on your running sheet here.
Yeah, so we're always looking at different ways in which we can analyse a game and actually just break down the game how we need to. And really, the game is all about your offensive returns with ball in hand and your defensive returns with how you restrict the opposition from getting scoreboard returns. So I'll shout out one of our guys back office, Corey Mobilio, who's sort of come up with this punishment report, which I think is an absolute ripper, which just basically outlines when you get the footy in your hands, your ability to be able to get scoreboard return when the opposition turn the footy over from your clearance game, that halfback area, which we just talk about so much being, so important in the modern game, and then your ability to be able to convert inside 50. So if you think about, if you run history over the last, 8-9 years, history shows that more often than not, the premiers get on a run late.
Yep.
They get on a run late, they come hot late. But you also run the exercise as well. And not many of them have a profile at this stage of the year that is alarming. They're either off to a flyer or they're just doing enough hovering around.
Yep.
Profile-wise is telling you they're going okay. I always say this about, about Geelong in 2022. Where they were 5-4 at round 9, but profile-wise, it was just greens everywhere. And then they get on a run and away they go.
There's a red light flashing.
So you talk about this stage of the year on this punishment report,
yes,
both offensively and defensively combined. The Premier has been top 5 in 9 of the last 10 years at this stage of the year.
Yep.
Yes, they get hot late.
Yes.
But their profile is in good shape at this stage of the year. So top 5 at the moment on the punishment report. Gold Coast come out number 1, Geelong 2, Collingwood 3, GWS 4, Adelaide 5. That's the top 5 right now at round 6, where the Premier has been in 9 of the last 10 years. That one Premier who wasn't top 5 was Brisbane last year. Brisbane offensively, no. Defensively, yes.
And they're not there again now.
And then the offensive side of things came as the year went on, and the rest is history. And they finished, with the punishment report in really good shape at the end of the year. So
nice work, Corey.
So just a couple of little things that we'll just throw out here, a couple of little surprises. So you're a Carlton supporter right now. Defensively, second best at denying the opposition their offensive game. Offensively, third worst in the competition. So that's not a surprise.
Yep.
But you've seen the last 2 weeks against, a fill-up against North and West Coast. That looks a bit better. Can't wait to sit down Sunday afternoon, 3:20.
The litmus test.
Let's see how this goes for real against a team who's in good shape.
Do you like Cripps forward?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
The eye would appear to suggest, though, that their clearance game's been better. Their that sort of mentality around the ball, which was the best version of them under Michael Voss, looks like it's restored. It's again against limited opposition, but that hunger around the coalface looks back. The clearance game.
It's really interesting when you get 4 or 5 months in your off season to A, review what happened the year before, and then B, go to work on areas that you need to improve. And clearly last year, Carlton, 14th just for raw points against. We're not getting too in-depth here. 14th for raw points against is not going to get the job done as the year goes on. So clearly that has been the number one focus all off-season, defence. They're 2-4 with a percentage of 122, which shows defensively they are rock solid. It's just been, have they taken away too much of the offensive side to fix up the defensive side? So whether or not they can get that balance right or not is going to be interesting. Hawthorn, we'll get into them shortly. I find this really interesting. This could have been my guesser, but I'm not even giving you a sniff with the guesser.
He's got a head wobble about the guesser.
I'm not giving you a sniff of the wobble. So they are the second worst team in the comp for punishing the opposition off turnover.
And most people would think they're flying.
That is 60% of scoring.
Yeah.
Comes from that source, and they are the second worst team in the comp right now, which I find absolutely staggering. So how they get that back in terms of both offensively and defensively, it's the sixth worst profile in the competition.
And Will Day's not coming back till the end of the year.
Yeah, in that aspect. So they do get a pretty nice draw over the next couple of weeks. So they might be able to change that profile. But just keeping them on watch at the moment, just to see how that changes. But this is something that we'll keep tracking throughout the year. The punishment, both offensively and defensively, how your game is actually going.
Daniel Hoyney's here. It's full on footy analysis on a Tuesday night. Elijah dropped us a text. Elijah saying Hoyney the GOAT coming through for me with the Pies tip. Could have told us they would win by 50. No, that's from Elijah. And Easter Monday, what a beautiful way to end a magnificent round. It had everything at the MCG. Not the most polished, but geez, it was high pressure. It was high intensity. It had a bit of everything, controversy. One team would get on top, another team would hit back. It looked like Hawthorn were going to got them in the trap. We're going to come over the top, and then Geelong, as they always do, that uber professionalism down the stretch, Hoyney, and they were able to hold them off.
Yeah, no, they were, we'll start just with the centre bounce game in this game. I don't know if I can't remember seeing a centre bounce game like this. To be
so many scores
honest.
from it.
So just keep this in mind. So if you win a centre clearance, you score 1 in every 4 of your centre clearances, right? So 25%. So at half time, you're sitting there analysing the game, going, okay, how's this going to go? Hawthorn had 8 centre clearances, scored 7 times, 2 goals, 5. That was really how they were basically scoring. Right? You go, geez, well, this can't stack up for the next 60 minutes. Then you sit there, and then their first 2 centre clearances of the third quarter, goal. So they've had their first 10 centre clearances. They scored 4 goals, 5. 90% of it. But I can't remember a number like it. And then Geelong on the other side, again, keep in mind, 1 in every 4 you score. Geelong were going at 1 in every 2 of their centre clearances were score. So that part of the game was a bit of just a bit weird in itself. But just wanted to talk about the Cats to start with, and then we'll get into the Hawks.
That's probably why it looks so fast, Hoyney.
Yeah, it's beautiful to watch. Centre bounce, efficiency's really easy on the eye to watch. But just with how they played, sort of challenging. We've talked about the Hawthorn back six and their struggles from a contest and ground ball perspective. Watching Geelong challenge that yesterday and going more direct, quicker, and more aggression towards goal. Get the footy and just go. 60 or 65 uncontested marks for the day. It wasn't a game like they played against Melbourne where they kept the footy off. It was surge, and try and challenge this Hawthorn back group.
Yep.
And then you've watched the previous 8 games, and there's some teams that are a little bit clunky at the moment, and offensively and whatever. This team just when they get the footy forward of centre, we talked about get it in there. There's no just get it in there. It is get it in there with method and with efficiency. Otherwise, we're not going. 46 entries for 26 scores in a game against good opposition. And every time they win it, they just look so dangerous. And that's why currently at the moment they have the best forward 50 in the competition. People talk about Tom Hawkins and a loss there. They just work, and it all sinks. It all looks good, which is why Sunday is going to be great coming up against Carlton at the moment, who defensively are rock solid.
So they didn't blink with danger was the takeaway for me as well. So when they were under the pump with those centre bounces that you're referencing there, I don't recall danger being. It wasn't break glass getting in there.
One centre bounce, he went
one
for the game.
So they didn't blink. They kept him forward, and gee whiz, is he having an impact as a permanent forward at the moment?
Can I give you just a little shout out to 2 players for Geelong, if we can? So Sean Manor.
Yep.
We've talked about him a bit on this show, talked about him last year. So he came back into the team, spent 3 months or so in the VFL program last year. Came back into the team around 17. Since he's come back into the team, so yesterday's performance should not be a surprise. Since he came back into the team in round 17 last year, he's the 10th highest rated player in the comp.
Sheesh.
What he does is he's a ratings player that we talk. It's creative, it's ball use, it's excitement. It's all about trying to get a scoreboard return. There's no boring, dull play in his game, which is why he got caught a couple of times yesterday because he tries.
Well, he tried to kick one with his right and he should have gone on the left, but nevertheless.
And then Tom Atkins, 62 tackles. No player has ever done that in our game after round 6.
Fair dinkum.
10 tackles plus on average.
62 tackles, 10 a game.
He's on world record pace.
No one's ever done that after round 6. So just a shout out there to Tom Atkins.
Very quick one off the text. Who's the All-Australian ruckman just at the moment?
Probably have to be TDK.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably have to be TDK.
And just coming back to Shaw Manor, he was one who had a really interrupted pre-season as well. Just while we're talking about preparations, he had the stressor in his foot, fracture in his foot. So he was laid up for a while as well. So going well.
Star. So the Hawthorn side of things.
Yep.
So offensively, we've spoken about it a couple of weeks ago, and it's still there. Offensively is their issue at the moment. They need to get that going, and keep saying it. Sam Mitchell knows this. He keeps trying to tell the industry they've got issues, and they've got things to work on. It's not disastrous. The way they played yesterday was good footy. They got issues. 15th for moving the footy from one end of the ground to the other. Right? Okay, so you sit there and you watch it yesterday, and then they had this handball game in the first half yesterday, where they've handballed more than they've kicked. We haven't seen Hawthorn do that for 12 months and a half of footy. So that was a different mode to try and challenge this defensive system to try and get some ball movement going. And yeah, they had some howlers of turnovers. I wouldn't be too worried about that if I'm a Hawthorn supporter. You're going to have those days. That's not a common trend. But their ability to be able to move the footy from one end of the ground to the other, and then their ability to be able to move it from their halfback area to inside 50 was the best that we've seen it for all season just about. Everyone's spoken about their turnovers and how bad it was. 10 turnovers in your own D50 is something that we haven't seen for Hawthorn for 6 years.
The kicking was wild. What was going on with it? Bad batch of Sherrans.
Bad boots, bad Sherrans.
So we haven't seen that, right? And I'm not going to be too worried about the howlers, but I think everyone's starting to realise the mode in which they're trying to move the footy. And we've talked about the change of angle game, right? And you're there at the game yesterday, and you're watching Geelong try and shut down this change of angle game to the point where sometimes Hawthorn would be in a set position, and Geelong almost had two on the mark. They had one just on the standard position, and then they had one on this 45 angle, trying to actually cut that.
Well, they actually intercepted one.
And yeah, correct. So I think a fair bit of credit needs to go to the Geelong system for actually forcing these turnovers. For Hawthorn to have 28 turnovers in their back half of the ground is rare and unseen for Hawthorn for quite a while. So they have their challenges at the moment. Probably good timing that they're coming up against West Coast, and then I think they've got maybe Melbourne or Richmond or whoever it might be over the next coming weeks to try and get this offensive return going. But just a couple of little areas to watch there for the Hawks. So outside of that centre bounce game yesterday for Hawthorn where they kicked 4-6, which that's not sustainable over the next 3, 4, 5 months. You're going to have days like that, but you're not going to be relying on that method. They started with the footy 78 times outside of centre bounce. 78 times they started with. They scored 13 times, 1 in every 6. AFL average is about 1 in every 4, 1 in every 5 times.
Issues.
So they've got offensive issues at the moment that they need to work on. Not all broken, but areas to fix.
Yeah. So to answer just the point you raised there, West Coast next, that's at Marvel, into Richmond at the MCG, into Melbourne at the MCG, then Gold Coast up in Darwin with the Suns playing their
into Guess Who?
Their games. Yep. Now, I feel like to set up Guess Who, we just need to give it the proper treatment, please, Eddie. Under all sorts of pressure.
He is.
The Guess Who for round 6 into 7.
Jeez, I'm Tower here.
This is a bit like Melbourne turning up the MCG last weekend. Hasn't had a victory the whole year, knows the whole world is looking at him.
Last 5 weeks, Sam Taylor, AFL number 1 for intercepts. Who's number 2?
That'll be
number 2.
Simple.
For intercepts.
Number 2.
Intercept marks?
Intercept possessions.
Intercept possessions.
Who's number 2?
That's the Guess Who for this week. Number 2 for intercept possessions across the first...
Last 5 weeks.
Last 5 weeks. And isn't it just so heartwarming to know that it's Hoyney against everyone? Like the Sportsday family, they just... the texts come flying through. And Hoyney's that confident. This is how arrogant the man is, given he's still on a bagel.
But this is a bloke who's actually been rattled over the last 6 weeks.
And he's calling us rattled.
He's got mean and nasty.
He's wanting the second best of something. Like you can smell the desperation coming off.
The definition of rattled. Just have a look at the camera in here. The producers and Gerard and Sammy are just completely rattled.
So confident and arrogant is he, Gerard?
Yes.
He's willing to give us the state of the player. Is that correct? Where's this person based?
Yeah, so no, I'm that confident that no one will get this. Right. I've been on this 20 years, right? And sometimes you just stumble across something that just it blows your mind for an hour until you get to the bottom of it.
An hour.
So this is
why I think it's going to be a forward.
This
or a
is
mid.
that.
All right.
Right. So the player is an interstate team.
Yes. So
non-Victorian.
Correct. Politically correct.
So
Non-Victorian.
The eight team.
Does he play forward or the centre?
No.
Clues?
He's a defender. Do you want me to give you the team?
Okay.
Or is it too far?
I'm going for
Well, it's up to you, Hoyney.
Clark from Freo.
Clark.
Just be known, if you do bust here, you can't be it's on you, okay? If you're
team-
willing to give us the team.
The team is Port Adelaide.
So we came up with a Port Adelaide player. In fact, we came up with 2.
Eddie, look at Eddie. He's pretty happy.
Eddie Corns out the back thinks it's a Sava.
He does.
And we've written down Miles Bergman. Yeah, okay. That's not a bad shout either. Maybe it's someone just left of centre given Hoyney's. You can look into things, can't you? All right, I've got a name I'm just going to throw out there.
Gerard.
Stab in the dark. Lockie Jones.
Lockie Jones.
That's the one I was looking for. Just trying to get his first name. Lockie Jones.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Why did you do that,
Well
man?
done. No, because I saw how rattled you were, and it was doing your head in. And it was just like, we're friends here. We're all part of the family.
Eddie nailed it. He knows his power. In fact, not a single nomination for Lockie Jones coming through. Shame on you, Sportsday family.
Right.
Yeah, so no, so Lockie Jones, right? So this is why I just... as I said, you've been doing this for 20 years, and there's some times where there's just things that you just fall off your chair in the office when you come across it. And coming across this today, when I had a look at this, I go, Lockie Jones.
You
right?
had to double check yourself.
So, his first game of the year against Collingwood was horrendous, right? Terrible. Yeah, we can
get dropped.
Yeah, we can look at that, right? So you take out that game. So since round 2, right, to the last 5 weeks, only Sam Taylor has intercepted the ball more than what Lockie Jones has. Yeah? Then you look at all defenders in the competition. From a ball-winning perspective, who's impacting the game most from a ball-winning perspective? Sam Taylor, number 1.
Yep.
Lockie Jones, number 2. Compare that, so Sam Taylor, with how he uses the footy from all defenders, 130th in the comp. Lockie Jones, top 25 in the comp. You look at scoreboard return, that's coming off the back of your intercept work. Connor Iden, number 1, plays in a strong offensive team. Rory Lobb, Harry Perryman, Lockie Jones comes in number 4. Overall performance this year, to put all that onto the table, overall performance this year has him as a top 20 player in the competition at the moment. So you look at, sometimes you just need to recognise it before it actually sort of really comes to light.
Yeah.
And we've done this a lot over the journey, where you look at the rating system, you look at what's happening there, and sometimes it staggers you, and you go, "Geez, I can't believe that. Like, I'm not going to fall." And then you watch this individual, whoever it might be, play, and you watch them the next couple of weeks, and then they get better, and they get better, and they get better. And I just think that this guy deserves a bit of recognition. He's copped a lot of criticism over his journey. He's been dropped a couple of times. He's had a few bad moments across his journey. But what he's done over the last 5 weeks, just want to give a shout out and some recognition to what he's been able to do.
So this is just to compare, just to inform our listeners one more time. You're comparing apples with apples.
Correct.
By doing it via your 100-minute.
Comparing the position that you play.
How much better
you're playing in that position to what's expected. So for the first time, we can compare the comp to the comp.
Hoyney, the Adelaide Crows had some early season hype sent their way by virtue of their offence, their forward line and their scoring power. But, geez, at the weekend, to do it another way, to keep the Giants to 4 goals, in fact, they were 2-8 at three-quarter time, even in those sort of conditions was pretty meritorious. How did you see the Crows?
Yeah, so just want to give an absolute full shout out here to Adelaide and the coaching staff and the strategy behind it. Yeah, I get 7 goals to 4 wasn't the prettiest game in the world, but from a tactical perspective, it was absolutely intriguing what Adelaide did. So to keep
been voted the worst game of the year.
Yeah, I know, and I can understand that from a neutral perspective that you just.
There's only one person voting.
Was that one of yours?
That was mine. One vote. Worst game of the year.
From a tactical perspective. Just want to get into that side of things. So 34 points for Adelaide. They're fewest that they've conceded to anyone in 6 years, right? So no worries. But competition, the rest, if you're a contender, go to this game of footy and watch what Adelaide did against what we all consider to be a flag contender. So we put it on the radar last week that no one is more aggressive with their change of angle game than GWS than we've seen since Richmond won those flags all those years ago, right? What Adelaide did was absolute textbook. The eyes, to me, are a dead set giveaway for what a team is trying to do. And if you want to go back and watch just the first 10 minutes of the game, you are absolutely across what Adelaide are doing. GWS, their first 5 marks in that halfback area, that springboard area, right? First 5 marks. Lockie Ash gets the footy across half-back area. Where's the eyes go? Straight across the ground, 45, 45, 45. No, not there. Long down the line play. Couple of minutes later.
Because it was covered?
It was all covered. Yep. Whitfield, 2 minutes later, gets the footy. Set position. Angles. No, can't go. Long down the line footy. Lockie Ash gets the footy, marks it, and without even thinking, just takes off in a aggressive 45 way
force it,
and go, no, I can't go anywhere. Can't go anywhere. Long down the line play. Tom Green gets it in the exact same position. A minute later, looks at the 45. Can't go. Has to kick long down the line, out in the full. Then it gets to the next stage, a couple of minutes later, where hasn't worked at all, and Lockie Whitfield just gets it on a 45 and just go, I'm going to go anyway and try it. Cuts off. Ben Keys, ready. Gets cuts off, straight down the footy. So that first quarter, forced into long down the line play. Long down the line, long down the line, long down the line. Not a Giants game. You have a look at a couple of those clips if you want to go back and have a look at it. You can see, we've talked about it.
Yep.
Darcy Jones, Harvey Thomas, all these guys, they're out on the far side, ready to receive the next play from that 45. But the way Adelaide defended it was unbelievable. In that first quarter, to put this into context, forced them to play long down the line footy, not this change of angles game.
Yep.
They forced GWS to turn the footy over 16 times in that midfield area. AFL average for a quarter is about 10. 16 times. Where does Adelaide's full score come from? Off the back of that, what's the final margin? 3 goals. 3 goals is what they scored in that first quarter off the back of that defensive system. So, yeah, I get that it was ugly. 87 chains GWS had coming out of their back half. 0 goals from 87 opportunities.
You saw the beauty in the numbers, Hoyney.
And it was fantastic what GWS...
Beautifully ugly.
Yeah.
And if you are coming up against GWS,
get the
as
game.
Kingy says, don't get beaten by what you know.
Yeah.
You prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for that. Textbook defence from the Crows.
Angle of the dangle, it always counts.
Collie were much the same going back to Thursday. Kept the Lions to 37 entries. Someone was telling me that was the lowest Brisbane have been held to since 2017 or something.
Going back to Fags' early days.
Frighteningly low number for Brisbane at the Gabba. All right, let's quickly get through some other clubs here. Western Bulldogs on your run sheet.
So the Dogs. So a couple of parts to this, right? So the Dogs ball movement game. Offensively, one end of the ground and the other. Second best in the comp. Defensively, the hardest team to move the footy against in the comp. So the clearance game against the Dogs is so important to be able to get the ball forward of centre. They got towed up in that area, St Kilda, which you put the names on paper with all respect to the St Kilda individuals. The names of the Dogs in the midfield and the names against the Saints in the midfield, well, it's probably not really a surprise. But we put on the agenda last year, Bevo's Strip Club.
Yeah.
That was back on the weekend. So St Kilda actually had their opportunities at time to be able to get the footy.
Attendance has been down, but it's come good.
So the Dogs
Strip Club.
Bevo's Strip. Right. So the Dogs' ability to be to be able to score from stoppage, no one is as more damaging as what the Dogs are in their clearance game. So that coming up against GWS this week with Callaghan and Green and Josh Kelly, who's not going as well as what a lot of people would assume, that is going to be so important. Not only against for the Giants this week against the Dogs, but for any opposition coming up against the Dogs, and then the Matt Kennedy conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So listening to you guys on the way in and listening to a lot of people having a bit of a crack at Carlton around how could you give up this guy for what you did and what have you. I reckon sometimes there's almost a win-win in a trade. And you go back to the Ben McGlynn and Josh Kennedy trade for Hawthorn, which they didn't need Josh Kennedy at that time. They got rid of him. Kennedy went on to have a brilliant career. Hawthorn went on to win 3 flags. Win-win, right? Matt Kennedy, I get that they didn't get much in return for him, and he's a top 20 player in the competition. And what he is doing as an individual is superb. But you think about the flip side to Carlton, okay? What George Hewitt is doing at the moment is brilliant. He's brilliant defensively to be able to lock away an opposition's best offensive midfielder, and then the offensive returns that he's generating is superb.
They needed it for balance.
But you go to last year, Matt Kennedy starting sub 5 times.
Yeah.
George Hewitt starting sub 5 times.
No, they would forever juggling between the pair. How many? He's not playing in front of Cripps. He's not playing in front of Hewitt. Well, they were waxing and waning there.
So,
too many inside mids.
What it was, though, it was brilliant recruiting because...
and hats off to
and he was
everyone.
contracted, so Carlton saw an opportunity to get some money off the books.
100%. And so, I think it's the easy thing to criticise Carlton. How do we let this guy go? Well, just stop, think, big picture. Yeah, Carlton, as you said, Sammy, get the money off the books. Didn't really need him to be in that midfield.
No, they needed some speed through there too.
Yeah.
So Jagger Smith was supposed to be playing, so there's a few pieces in that.
Yeah, so just let that one go, I think, if you're an outsider looking in with the Matt Kennedy conversation.
Some had them winning none. The Tigers have won 2 of 6.
Yeah. So hats off to Richmond for doing that. On the weekend against Gold Coast, I don't think anyone saw that coming. And I think if you're a Richmond supporter, all you're really interested in 2025 are the kids and what's coming for. Nick Vlosten, phenomenal on the weekend, but you know what he's done.
Jonty look really good.
You know what he's done. You know what Broad. You know what these guys. Taranto. His ability to be able to win the footy around all that. That's great.
Get back in your box, Kane. We mentioned Taranto. It's okay, mate. Go back.
But just a couple of their. So they're 4 highest rated players this year.
Yeah.
So Seth Campbell, as we said, number 35 in the competition. How he's using the footy as a forward, top 10 in the comp, kicked multiple goals in 5 of his 6 games. So huge positive there. Toby Nankervis is their second highest rated player. Nank, unbelievable, great leadership, all that sort of stuff.
Is he second best ruckman in the comp?
No, there's a couple other rucks ahead of him. Luke Jackson was ahead of him as well. So we know that. But then Tom Brown, as we said before, one of the risers, 55th highest rated player in the competition. How he's using the footy at the moment is top 35 in the comp. So Richmond supporter behind the footy, you've got that. And then the number 1 draft pick, Sam Laylor, as well. Just outside the top 100 already as an 18-year-old kid, 6 games into his career.
Poise.
The exciting part about that, when you break down his overall performance, what he's doing as a forward is to expectation, which is already a huge tick as an 18-year-old 6-gamer. But the exciting thing is, from his 117 minutes as a midfielder, he is shooting the lights out when he's playing midfield time. So that to me, I'm looking at that as a Richmond supporter going, prelim final winners are those midfielders who can go forward. This guy, 6 games into your career.
Flag this decade?
Yeah, is already looking.
Flag this decade for the Tigers.
Oh, potentially, how would you know?
Okay.
But
you've been hot. I'm just looking. You've been hot.
No,
Feed the beast.
But just a bit of love there for the Richmond youngsters. We haven't talked about them yet this year.
Hoyne declares Tigers will win a flag this decade.
Right. Just a quick one here. Maybe we can take on some of this as homework for you, but acknowledge some of it now. Tim Watson on SEN Breakfast this morning with Gary Lyon, and not just today, but has been of the opinion in recent times that Nick Blakey's got a fake ID. It says, I'm a good kick, but in actual fact, I'm not that good. What does the data say?
I thought you were going to say he's a snake, not a lizard.
The lizard's been slithering waywardly, apparently.
So far this year, he's still a top 20 ball user.
Top 20?
In the competition, with the impact that he has from that. But I think because he has a license to be so aggressive, that he is going to have some moments where the ball use is ordinary, and it was on the weekend.
But in your rating, when he nails them.
But then when it comes off, because it's so aggressive, when it comes off, it's significant and it gets rated so highly.
And I think that's been part of the Wisps' criticism, that he takes on a little bit too much. All right, who did they miss out of the weekend?
Sam Walsh, great for Blue supporters, 2 weeks in a row. Yep. 4th highest rated player v North, didn't get a vote off the back of being the 5th highest rated player v West Coast. Remember, we talked about he is their MIP.
Play it down, mate. Play it down.
Good to see Sam Walsh back into some form.
Keep a lid on it.
Could not believe this. Right. Andrew Brayshaw on the weekend against Melbourne. Highest rated game of his career.
Dominated.
Number 1 rated player on the ground. Currently the 3rd best player in the competition, but didn't get a vote from the coaches.
I don't think they had a good weekend, the coach.
Tom Green. Highest rated player in Adelaide v GWS, didn't get a vote. Actually having a really good year, having the best year of his career.
Yep.
Top 20 player in the comp at the moment. Love this guy. Couldn't believe he didn't get a vote on the weekend.
Good
Ben
call.
Long.
He makes things happen, doesn't he?
I thought he was the only person that was looking like threatening for
Gold
Coast on the weekend.
Rail got 3.
His man got 10 coaches' votes.
Yeah. No, Vlosten was superb. It was a great battle between the two, I thought. But he's flying at the moment. Currently the 2nd highest rated player in the comp. If you're not aware of what this guy is doing, he is flying.
2nd highest?
When you're away for a couple of weeks.
Ben Long, did you say?
Yeah.
What? 2nd highest rated player in the comp?
So this is the sort of stuff you're missing.
And now everyone is on board. Everyone's watching it.
This is what a podcast is for.
It's no surprise.
The coaches are listening to the podcast. Yeah, so should you.
How I missed it.
And then a bit of love for Sam Powell-Pepper on the weekend against the Swans. 4th highest rated player on the ground. Didn't get a vote. Critical to what Port Adelaide are able to do inside that forward 50, along with Mitch Georgiades. So
all right.
Going along nicely.
Very much so. And given you've said all that, who's the most damaging player out of the weekend?
Another one that actually really surprised me here. Joel Frazier from the
Oh, yeah.
Dogs.
On
Yeah,
fire.
Can play.
Yeah, so high.
Baby Bond?
Oh, yes.
Haven't they
That is getting around a bit, isn't it, the Baby Bond?
At least they found some. They got the Doc on the wing,
Right,
and
Sam-
they've got Frazier in the middle.
Sam Powell, well done. Very good operator, Sam. Ball user, no one had greater impact than Jake Waterman. His ability to be able to slot those goals, accuracy. We talk about that a lot. Ball winning, George Hewitt, clearly the most impactful player from the weekend with how they won the footy. And then probably the only shining light for St Kilda was Callum Wilkie and his defensive actions there.
Hoyney's gem and horror. Who was your gem out of the weekend?
So Maxi Gawn,
Oh, how good
the
was it?
oldest player in history
Amazing.
to have 25 plus disposals, 15 contested possessions, 10 clearances, and 12 score
He
involvements. in a
treated
game of
Fremantle
footy.
with contempt.
Amazing what he was able to do. And the horror, well, I could have started anywhere here with North Melbourne, but we just kept this simple. So they're quarter four. They won the ball back off Carlton 5 times. That's their fewest ever.
Looked like
in
the
a
flag
quarter
went up.
of footy.
Flag went up.
And they took 4 marks for the quarter. Their third fewest ever in a quarter of footy. So their finish to that game on Good Friday could have gone anywhere.
Is there one thing they need to work on most? But a lot of people want you put the knife through them.
They've got to get this midfield right with how they defend.
Yeah.
Then it's been an issue for 10 years or so. Their inability to defend lost clearances. They're a one-way street. When they win it, they're damaging. When they lose it, just the floodgates open. Can I just tell you, the feedback I've just got off the text there from my mates at work. What were you doing? Giving them too many clues.
Yeah,
What were you
your
doing?
reputation's sullied.
They've given me the point though. They said, no, you deserve that. You get that
you're,
one.
You're 0-7 with a percentage of 45. You're in all sorts of trouble.
He's giving himself the point.
How is he?
That's like North Melbourne coming out and saying, we won on the weekend.
It's like England's Ashes series.
Expected
A moral
scores.
winners.
Victory.